war that continues to be marked by gross violations of international human rights law and serious violations of international humanitarian law. And with huge global repercussions, economic uncertainties, further exacerbated food insecurity, and a cost of living crisis that is leaving many not knowing how they will survive from one day to the next, notably in the most fragile settings in the global south.
Maria Popova is an associate professor of political science and Jean Monnet chair at McGill University. She joins me now from Montreal. Professor, I'd like to hear your reaction to this report, and what do you know about the human rights violations that have taken place?
So human rights violations have taken place in Ukraine from the very start of Russia's invasion. Russia seems to be violating laws of war, not only through executions, but also through maintaining filtration centers and torture chambers in the territories that it has occupied. So this report is really just the tip of the iceberg, but it provides a good overview of the types of crimes that Russia is committing.
What do you think will come out of this report? What could be the consequences of it?
The consequences could be that international support is picking up for the idea that Russia needs to be held accountable for these violations of international law, that there has to be an international tribunal set to establish exactly what violations have been done, to have Russian officials tried for the crime of aggression. And the longer this war goes on and the more crimes Russia commits, international support for such an institution will grow.
But how can Russia be held accountable? Do you think it's just largely symbolic, because we've seen all these sanctions since the start of the war, which seems like they've done nothing to compel Putin to pull back?
Sure, Putin has not stopped his war, but the sanctions are biting the Russian economy. The Russian economy is suffering from these sanctions, so they're achieving some results. In terms of the likelihood of putting Russian officials on trial in an international tribunal, that will, of course, depend on the military outcome of this war. And it may not seem like something that is likely to happen, but we cannot rule it out either. So far, things are not going well for the Russian army in Ukraine.
Given what you know is in this report and where things stand with this war, what do you think the consequences are if this war continues?
The consequences is that more people around the world learn about these crimes. It galvanizes support for Ukraine. More countries will join the coalition that is supporting Ukraine. I don't expect a lot of consequences in terms of Russia instructing its military to follow the law closely. In fact, we see signs that Russia is going in the opposite direction, proposing a law in the Russian Duma that would basically give the right to Russian soldiers and mercenaries in Ukraine to commit whatever crimes they want and be free from any liability for it. So I don't expect consequences in terms of changes in Russia's behavior, but in terms of support for Ukraine at the international level, this report will boost that.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Associate Professor Maria Popova joining us from Montreal. Thank you.